Also, welcome to Invest, talk about investing, finance, and professional development for today's symptoms only. The investment talk today would be Ethereum ETH. First, want to say happy Wednesday, everybody. Have a great week so far. Respect to recording time of 9:50 a.m. on Eastern Time, Ethereum currently trading $3,426, up about 0.84% so far. With respect to the overall market, is relatively green today with respect to the rebound that we subsequently incur across the market, specifically on the equity side. But with respect to crypto side, it's kind of just normalizing from there, right? So with respect to Bitcoin's currently up about 1.5%, Ethereum's currently up about 0.9%, Dogecoin about 0.6%, Cardano seems like it's leaping up and away 4.14% at the moment, definitely hovering above the $2.30 level as a resistance level that we've formed, but really not really that substantive. So this is relatively going to be short-lived, but we are forming some sort of a curvature at the moment. So it seems like we are sustaining and trying to build a platform. And this is relatively obvious that this is mainly driven by the drag effects that we are having upon Bitcoin, which is dragging the whole market to go up. So this is not anything substantive per se. And with respect to Solana, it's sustaining to stay above because of the drag effects, but we are still going to see more selling pressure coming back down to this $144, which is something we saw. You could see that we did hit that earlier last night, I think during midnight. So we subsequently got recuperated back up because of the news that got broke out on the leading stablecoins news, right? So at XRP, we are at a good level. I think this is a good level. Dollar cost average at $1 or anywhere close to $1 is always a good level. But if again, if we break the $1, the next level will be going down to the 93. The next level will be going down to the 78, which is something we have to be cautious of, right? So with respect to the overall stock market today, it's relatively flat. But if you look closely into a specific sector, we realize that with respect to Nasdaq, which are most of the composition of growth stocks and high tech stocks, is selling off a little bit, right? And it seems like we are breaking the momentum in a way. So the sell-off is definitely incurring. We have formed across recently. So I think on the growth stock side, we're gonna see a little bit more of a selling pressure. Just a bit more because we are on the RSI of a 49.9 at the moment. So we need to get down even further to like the 35, right? Which is the ideal level for your $2 cost average. So start chipping away on the growth stock side of the house when you see like an ideal dip. So I'm gonna keep an eye out on it as the day progresses around noontime, which is the typical time I typically like to buy stocks when the market normalizes from the East Coast, and also with respect to the West Coaster on the obviously in the continental US, wakes up and start incurring some buying pressure. So it's more of like a more of a risk averse approach that I typically like to take, typically around like the noon time and the Eastern time, right? So going back to Ethereum, so currently we are up about 1.17%. And with respect to the news I've been picking up earlier this morning, it's relatively positive again, right? Talking about, and I would say the combinations are kind of a mixed bag from various different publication companies. The first one coming from Decrypt 2 hours ago, talk about funds never at risk, says developer of Ethereum scaling solutions Arbitrum during downtime. So this is just another regurgitation talking about the value proposition of Arbitrum, right? And the privacy concerns that we've been cultivating so far, and what is their solutions on solving that going forward, that these fund managers have nothing to be worried about because of how seal tight their infrastructure on a technological perspective is going to look like going forward. And despite the global adoptions and obviously the massive commercialization that we're seeing right now on the NFT side, right? On the other one, talk about CNBC 3 hours ago, talk about these undervalued inflation-proof assets could outperform the fourth quarter. So as you know, fourth quarter is coming, right? Technically, we are in fourth quarter right now. If you almost there, if you may. October is technically the fourth quarter, but we're like halfway there, so I would just consider that anyways. That the sector rotation typically occur late September, based on my historical observation. So with respect to these outperformance that these investment banks are hedging, JP Morgan put a stamp of approval next to Ethereum and Bitcoin, saying that these with respect to Bitcoin, And with respect to Ethereum, even Dogecoin, they mentioned for some reason that these could be inflationary proof assets that could subsequently outperform us. We potentially see some sort of a correction on the equity side of the house, and also with respect to the quantitative tapering plan that we are still, keeping an eye out on, contingent on the job numbers. Obviously with the great caveat of the COVID variants news that we are still, we still need to understand further about how we're going to be progressing going forward, right? Seems like the cases are spiking, but the governments, just like talk about municipality in the New York City perspective is where I live. Seems like they're slowly opening up. The vaccine is readily available. People are vaccinated. I would say majority of them. And school is opening up. School actually opened up yesterday, so that's why on the traffics today on highway it was relatively more robust in comparisons to days prior, right? So it was definitely a little bit of a commute for me and my friend when we were coming back from the gym and on the way to the gym. So and also restaurants wise, it's also like opening up. They do require like a vaccination card that you have to show and the ID. So they are relatively buttoned up. But is there like a formalized procedure, or like is there like a mandatory enforcement on the vaccination? There isn't, right? So we still need to watch out for, right? And just my personal experience, my close friends and one of my senior advisor at my fund got COVID recently, and basically last week. So it seems like the cases are still something we need to be mindful of, right? So another one on Fox News talked about Bitcoin above $47,000 level. Ethereum, Dogecoin higher as well. Obviously, with respect to the drag effects that we saw, right, with respect to the Apple's conference that we heard yesterday, there was some dragging pressure because people were anticipating that Apple would talk something along the line with respect to crypto assets implementations, right? Which I don't think they actually did talk about that, right? They were, I think it's something that in the back of their mind, but I don't think they are confirmatory with respect to their implementations on how it's going to be fit into the business model going forward. So it's something we have to watch out for. Also, on top of the fact that Cathie Wood did talk about, with respect to her regurgitation, the $500,000 price target for the next 5 years for Bitcoin, which subsequently would drive, or drag up the whole market to go up because of her stamp of approval, right? And another one on Bazinga 6 hours ago talked about with respect to the conference yesterday. Apple has made a clear statements that they are blocking Ethereum wallets for displaying NFTs. So this is something that I guess people want to clarify because media affectation sometimes can be truthful, sometimes it can be a little bit of a fluff, right? So this is just another clarification on their behalf in a corporate perspective. Another one coming from Cointelegraph, ARK Invest, obviously Cathie Wood's fund, to split 60% Bitcoin and 40% in Ethereum as confidence in Ether grows dramatically. So this is the first time that we hear about her diversification. And I would say my diversification in terms of my portfolio in comparisons to Cathie's portfolio allocation is quite comparable. I think my holding right now is like kind of outweighting. I would say more my the opposite. I'm 60% Ether and then 40% in Bitcoin. And it's not because I personally bought more Ethereum. It's because of the fact that Ethereum has outgrown Bitcoin in a percentage perspective. We basically start the same basis, right? I start with the same small incremental amount that I put in a percentage perspective and in the value perspective, right? It's just that Ether has grown over time, right? More exponentially in comparisons to Bitcoin. So with respect to the next one, talk about Bazinga 12 hours ago. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin shoots up while Solana falls on network crash. So this is something we've been talking about, right? Solana, we saw that $215 spike and subsequently reversed back down to test above the 199 level, right? Just to like try to stay above 200. But as you know, that was not going to be long lived. And didn't last long until we crashed down to the next level 172, and now we are testing the 157. But technically, the real net level again, right, just to regurgitate, would be the 144, and then the 112, and then the 97. The real level is really the 76 and 66, but I would start buying at the 66 or anything below 70. It's gonna be a bloody one, right? But we are seeing the bloodiness already, and we just recently crossed the cross section on a def cross perspective. We are still overbought, but definitely much better because we'd be below the equator line. But we still need to obviously watch out because the risk is still relatively high, right? It's the reason why Solana is down while the whole crypto market's up, you know? So something we'll be cautious of, and this is something that is, it's not a surprise. We've been talking about this for a while. And then the other one talk about another regurgitation news, talk about Bitcoin list. ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood puts Bitcoins over 500K in 5 years. More confidence in Ether. So another regurgitation news. This is something we have heard before. And this seems like this is interesting why they keep mentioning this over and over again. Seems like there's some hype effects that's happening right now. Obviously, Cathie is an influential member in the crypto community. Obviously, with her, next generation investment philosophy, which we appreciate. I think she does definitely have a unique value proposition in terms of how she invests. And that's why it's so popular among the millennials, if you may. So she is someone that is a public figure that is highly praised. So for these media invitation companies to be, putting her name or like just kind of reminding us her bullish signal, it's a little bit of a media affectation in a more of an embellished type of way. So something you have to read it with a grain of salt, right? Why are they pushing so hard and so, consistently in this type of fashion, right? And that's pretty much it on the news front. So just more hype news, if you may. And ultimately, we're in the business of risk mitigation. With respect to the current technical analysis momentum at the moment, we know that we are forming more of a consolidation level at the $3,325 level, and the $3,150 level, which we've been oscillating on a sideways fashion, right? And RSI, we are still at the 52.74, so we're nowhere near the 35, so we're still in the mid level, right? However, the MACD is slowly crossing up right now, right, because of the bullish news that we've been hearing so far. So with respect to like what is the foreshadow that we should be expecting going forward, again, right, if we follow the fundamentals, which is the cheat sheet that we have, we know that we need to go through the anxiety denial, right? It seems like we are at the early stage of denial right now, right? So something we have to be cautious of, right? Because I think the chart is quite comparable, but we do know that, if you're buying at the current level right now, let's just say you want to just buy in the current level right now, you probably want to buy in the nearest term would be the 3,150, right? Because that's a logical level to buy at, right? But do we see like 2,750, 2,550? I think we should still see so, right? Because RSI is still overbought, and we need to go through the market cycle. We know that the whales bought in at 2,600, 2,450. So we need to incentivize the whales to come in again. So it seems like these news are obviously trying to drive some buying pressure from the public investors, but in terms of like the institutional investors, which has the largest market power, are they incentivized to be doing so right now? Something you have to be questioning, right? So with respect to the psychological perspective, like to stay in the frame of reference, 3,000, 2,700, 2,450 are still the levels that I feel personally comfortable incurring risk on. You know what I'm trying to say? When the news are as hype as possible, like the way we've been experiencing so far, as we've been keeping tabs on a daily basis, the more you want to be wary, the more you want to be, skeptical, if you may, right? But let's say you just want to get rid of that feelings, buy long term, right? Hold it for a long term, because next year by this time it should technically be close to $10,000 per Ethereum, right? And there's a reason why these institutions are putting the stamp of approval, because ultimately, long-term wise, which most institutions are long-term investors, that with the corporate adoptions and utilizations going forward, we should reach somewhere around these levels in the future, like in the next 10 years. Right? So hopefully this is helpful. It's my quick recap on Wednesday. And you'll probably see me again later today. And hopefully you guys have a great rest of the day and stay tuned for what's coming up. Take care.